Good morning, everybody. 7.0 introduced reworks for some heroes and some items, and I think it's really important that we talk about those right away, because they really change the way you play the game. While it's nice that Shadow Fiend has a faster cast point on his races, that doesn't really change much about the hero in terms of how he's played and how you play against him. However, such things as Necrophos having an entirely new ability certainly does. So we're going to be talking about these things right now. We've got Treant Protector, Necrophos, Techies, and Lycan as our four main heroes that got reworked in 7.0. Let's start with Necrophos. Necrophos got an entirely new ability. It's called Ghost Shroud. This ability makes it so that for 4.5 seconds you cannot be attacked anymore, you become ethereal, slow enemies around you, amplify all healing that you gain, and you take a little bit more magic damage. Now this slow is actually pretty significant, as you can see. It's 36% in a rather big AoE, so that is quite powerful. And of course the ability to stop enemies from attacking you, yeah, that is something Necrophos can definitely make use of. Amplified healing is also really nice. It is also a rather weak ethereal effect, so the magic amp the increased magic damage he takes is only 20%, which isn't really that significant. Now they removed Sadist for this and made it a part of Death Pulse. They also nerfed the damage on Death Pulse, but it now has health regeneration per kill, mana regeneration per kill, and of course the hero kill regen multiplier. This regeneration is worse than it was before. So overall, this is kind of a nerf to his sustainability in terms of farming. He also deals less damage, which yet again has a little bit of a nerf to his ability to farm. However, overall, I think he is definitely going to be able to fight a lot better. I quite like the Ghost Shroud. If you're getting attacked by somebody, you just push W and all of a sudden, yeah, they're going to be struggling with it. Another problem Necrophos faced frequently is people just running away from him. So Nyx Assassin, he's gonna be on the run and you're just trying so hard to catch up and get your Death Pulse to connect with the guy, and it's just not happening. But now you just cast this spell and they are not going anywhere, and then you just spam your Death Pulse and you can take them down. So I like this ability a lot. I think it's actually going to be quite powerful and it fits with Necrophos' toolset. However, they did nerf his farming ability by a lot. His farming ability is now significantly less powerful. He no longer can just keep going forever and keep sustaining himself forever. He also doesn't have the ability to really clear out waves in 2 death pulses. 200 damage is just not enough for that. It's gonna take him quite a few right clicks on all of the creeps to take down a creep wave. So in that regard, he got nerfed pretty significantly. They also changed his ultimate. It now doesn't apply 30 seconds respawn timer whenever you kill somebody with it. Instead, it applies a 10 second, 20 second, and 30 seconds. It scales, right? It scales. It also no longer has the Aghanim Scepter buyback disabling effect. I forgot to talk about this in the Aghanim Scepter review video. Now, they removed this Aghanim Scepter and replaced it with a new one. This one simply reduces the cooldown to 25 seconds. Now that is a significant decrease. 25 seconds on this ability is actually incredibly powerful. They even removed the added damage, so they understand that the 25 second cooldown on an ability that is already this strong is actually kind of insane. So Aghanims will still be a viable pickup for Necrophos, I have no doubt about that. However, and this is kind of important to keep in mind, this is still a nerf to Necrophos. Aghanim Scepter, the old one, was a game-breaking ability. It was a brute force approach to making Necrophos viable by giving him a tool that is insanely overpowered. It is just completely broken. It is an ability that ignored the mechanics and the laws of the game, and it broke the game as a whole. It is just something that was put in there as a really brute force, raw approach to giving Necrophos a tool that is so completely over the top overpowered that just because of that he will be picked up. Which, to some extent worked. Necrophos wasn't really the best character in the game, but his ultimate was certainly one of the best ultimates in the entire game. They nerfed that now. His ultimate was still really good, even with Aghanims, is no longer that game-breaking. And it seems to me like they're taking a different approach now. They are no longer saying, you know what, we're just gonna give them like the super most insane ultimate. No, they are gonna make sure that the rest of the hero is actually viable as well. Because previously Sadist really wasn't that useful outside of farming. I mean, sometimes in fights it could come in handy, but most of the time, right? It just wasn't that great. It's like a little bit tricky. Sadist is the kind of ability that is very situationally useful in team fights, and more often than not, during a big team fight, you will actually get no value out of it at all, which isn't that great. Having the Ghost Shout fixes that, and that's why they removed the Aghanims. They took a different approach with the hero as a whole. At least, that's what I think. Anyway, I like the new Necrophos. I think he's going to be decently powerful. We're gonna have to try out the Ghost Shroud first. It seems to me like this thing is actually gonna be quite strong, right? It has an amplification on the healing he receives, which is nice. So this, of course, also applies to stuff that he's being healed by from other heroes, right? Or if he uses a mecha or something like that, he'll still get benefits from it. I can actually showcase this really quick. Hello, let's go ahead and get him a little bit lower, you know, make sure he doesn't have full HP. So there we go, right? But if I cast this spell right here, Necrophos is being healed. But if I activate the Ghost Shout, he's being healed more, which I think is fairly obvious. So you can see that is definitely something that will be helpful, but we're gonna have to wait and see how it works out in the game. I like the ability, but the numbers, not on the Ghost Shroud, but on the Death Pulse, may be a little bit too low. This is the thing that worries me, right? Death Pulse may be a little bit too weak. But anyway, we've got Treant Protector. Treant Protector's Q is now a passive, which makes it so that if he is in range of a tree for 6 or 3 seconds, he goes invisible, gains movement speed. He can cast spells as he could before and not break the invisibility. But if he breaks the invisibility with an attack, he will stun people. This stun is quite significant and lasts 2.2 seconds at max, 1 second at the lowest level. I'm not sure how powerful this ability is, honestly. The problem is that the detection range for Nature's Guise is very low. Very, very low. As you can see, I'm this close to a tree and it doesn't detect it. We can keep kind of creeping forward. So I can be in this kind of situation and it will not trigger. You really need to be hugging the trees, which is a little bit awkward, right? So that makes it a bit... Now, it also doesn't allow you to really cross large distances. So this right here is honestly the maximum you can do. I can't go over here. I can't go all the way to that spot, which is reasonable, of course. However, you need to keep in mind that if an enemy is kind of sitting in a wider spot in the lane, like maybe around here, a Treant Protector will struggle getting there and getting the bash. Now, this seems to be a fine ability, honestly. I don't think this is incredibly powerful, but I also don't think it's incredibly weak. This is going to work fine. Treant Protector will be picked up in the same way he was before. He is just a little less annoying now. He also now has a way of interrupting stuff. Now, it's not reliable though, right? You cannot interrupt the TP this way, simply because the Nature's Guise will not activate in time for you to do that. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, but it's an interesting way. I feel like this is another one of those abilities that is very experimental, and they said, you know what, we're going to make the numbers low to start with, before we really go into it, because a 3-second fade time on this is actually really long, as you can see. Right, this is how long it takes me, and that is at max level. That is if with me maxing out the ability. 6 seconds at level 1, it's just gonna take forever. So this may be a little bit weak, but it's definitely something that got potential, and I think they'll probably stick with this ability, but they'll go ahead and make it so. They'll go ahead and make it so that the numbers are a little bit better, right? Then we've got Lycan. So Lycan got changed quite a bit. It mostly made him and his summons tankier. So we got the Feral Impulse. Instead of giving attack speed, it now gives more damage and HP regeneration. 10 HP regen, which is actually quite significant, right? 10 HP regen is a bunch. Now, then we have the Howl. Howl previously gave 50 bonus damage to heroes. It now only gives 25, and it also gives health, which is actually a little bit silly. So you can see if I activate the Howl right here, everybody gains bonus health. This makes this a very powerful ability during fights, actually kind of insanely so. It also works on his walls, so you can see we have the walls right here with 320 life. We activate this, now they have 520 life and they can blaze it, which is a little bit crazy. Now, I don't really know why they have 520 life. It seems to me like they should have 420. But maybe there's just a special rule for the walls, so this is buggy. But it says right there, minion bonus health, 100. You can see these guys go up to 520 as opposed to 420, which is where they should be at, but alright. I mean, I suppose that's still a work in progress, right? This is still all on the test client. Overall, the point here is to make Lycan's minions more tanky. They deal less damage now, seeing as they no longer have the added attack speed. And that added attack speed mattered, especially with the Necrobook, right? The Necromonicon Warrior actually has the lowest base attack time of any unit in the game. Nobody attacks faster than it, and nobody benefits more from attack speed than it did. Now, of course, Necrobook is still going to stay an essential part of Lycan's item set, so it kind of makes it a little bit tricky. Now, actually, wait, no. So, the Necrobook right now has 700 HP. If I activate this, has 800. So these work. The wolves now have 420 life as well. I don't know, dude. It's still buggy, right? I don't really know what was up with that, but alright, I'm not gonna be complaining about it. Still, the nice thing about this too is it applies to all summons, right? So it's not just your summons, it applies to allied summons as well, so you can make the Necromonicon warriors of your allies more powerful as well. You can make the Spiderlings of a Broodmother more powerful, which really crashes the game apparently. Now that's fun. Alright, so the game crashed, but we are back. It luckily let me reload the lobby. Point being, Lycan is a lot more tanky now. And this tankiness may actually be quite useful. Lycan also has a funny talent at level 25, which gives him 2 more wolves that he can summon. These 4 wolves, if they are tanked up like this, could actually be somewhat significant, but of course you need level 25 for that, which is a tall order as a Lycan, seeing as this hero likes to end game before the 20-minute mark. Either way, I think this is a good change. Lycan really had a bit of an issue with people just killing the summons and then he kind of became useless. Especially if you didn't have a great early game. So now that is going to be less of an issue. It also makes it so his howl becomes more significant during team fights. Not every hero can benefit from 50 bonus damage, right? If I'm playing my Necrophos here and I'm running around with my Ghost Shroud, now, I'm not clicking on anything, I can't attack, right? Or if I'm playing Treant Protector, but I'm trying to get a good ultimate, I'm not trying to hit people, alright? That's just not a thing I really do. However, the 200 bonus health, they're gonna be useful for everybody. That is just a really nice, solid, flat increase in power for Lycan during team fights. And I think that is really nice, because that's also something that he struggled with a little bit before this patch. Techies is the hero that got the most significant rework. All 3 of his basic abilities got changed significantly. Now his ultimate stays the same. It still works as it did before. You put this thing down and you can explode it. It's just as you would expect. Now landmines have been replaced by proximity mines though. You can see these proximity mines have a very big AoE. You plant them and then you need to step on them to activate them. However, it's a little bit differently. These mines will not trigger if the enemy gets out of the radius in time. As you can see, I walked right on top of the thing, and it didn't immediately activate as before, right? Like, this is when you would expect it to trigger, but it doesn't. It takes a little while. In fact, I can actually dodge this entirely by simply walking in there, walking out, and as you can see, as long as I'm fast enough, this will not trigger. Now, it doesn't need me to step right on top of the mine, in case you're thinking that. As long as I'm inside of this radius, and as you can see, that radius is fucking huge. But as long as I'm inside of this radius, the mine will trigger. The mine also deals a lot of damage, magic damage at that, 750 damage at level 4, which of course you can have at level 7. Now you need people to be inside of the mine now, and that's kind of the trick. That is where this new stasis trap comes in. The new stasis trap works a little bit differently. It still has the fade time of 2 seconds, and then you put it down and it's just kind of sitting there. However, it now will trigger when people step on top of it immediately. Not with a delay as before. The proximity mines now have the delay, the stasis trap doesn't. So you put this down, and then you have your Nux Assassin run in, and boom, triggers immediately. Now, as you can see, it's a huge AoE, so it's a little bit difficult to properly time this, but what you need to do is you basically want to have this combo going on, right? So you have your proximity mines and you have your stasis trap. You run in, it triggers, and then the proximity mine will also trigger. Because of this new stasis trap and proximity mine, Techies has a new combo. If you put down a proximity mine, you want to put down a stasis trap on top of it, and then when people step into that radius, they will be rooted, and then a proximity mine explodes, dealing a lot of damage to them. This is actually quite powerful. Now, an important thing to keep in mind though, you cannot have multiple proximity mines in the same spot. So if I put one here, I can't put one around this, right? Doesn't work. As long as it is in the radius of the other proximity mine, I cannot put it there. I can put one over here, but I cannot stack them. That doesn't work anymore. Now the stasis trap does though, right? I can just kind of put stasis traps wherever I want. The stasis trap actually seems really powerful in my opinion, right? But you run in there and then they trigger, and well, this time I didn't line it up properly. But boom, okay, we're taking a bit of damage. Still, you can overlap the AoE, but you cannot really overlap them all too much. And it's going to be quite tricky to properly hit people with multiple proximity mines. He also got a new ability called Blast Off. This replaces the Suicide Squad attack. Blast Off has a very big radius, as you can see. You target an AoE, then Techies blasts off after a little DNA, jumps in there, takes 50% of his maximum HP in damage, and then he deals damage in an AoE, right? This damage is a set amount. It doesn't depend on how much HP he had. It also silences people, and for a very long duration at that. It silences people for 7 seconds at max, which is very, very powerful. So to some extent, Techies' new combo goes somewhat like this. You put these two down, somebody steps into it, you see that, and then you jump them. But you jump in with your blast off and deal damage to them, and then hopefully they'll be dead by then. Of course, it's working on quite a few assumptions there, but hey. This does work as a suicide move. So if I use blast off 3 times right here, because of health regen and all of that, right? But I use it 3 times and you will see, rip Techies, you can kill yourself this way. So don't worry, you can still go suiciding with Techies, that's still in the game. But anyway, Techies now works very differently. It's no longer about stacking up a lot of mines. Instead, you want to have a lot of individual smaller mine fields, which honestly seems really scary. Like, that seems incredibly annoying to go up against, and I'm not looking forward to it. Not even a tiny little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about the items now. So there's an overall of 5 items that got reworked. Those are Drums of Endurance, Rod of Athos, Helm of the Dominator, Mask of Madness, and Satanic. A lot of lifesteal stuff, as you can see. Now, Rod of Athos is pretty straightforward. Instead of slowing people, it now applies a root, which is something I got completely wrong in my Skyrim video, but hey, now I know, right? This root is very powerful. I actually quite like it. It also shoots a projectile now. It has a little bit of a longer cooldown, but that's about it, right? It's a little different, but it's not really that crazy. Drums now give you a static 20 movement speed aura. Other than that, they stay mostly the same. The build-up doesn't use a Ring of Regen anymore. Instead, it uses a Sage's Mask. But, I mean, that's really about it, right? They buffed it a little bit. I quite like this change, actually. I think the 20 static movement speed aura is really, really nice. And of course, you can activate it if you really desire a percentage-based one. Helm of the Dominator is a big one, and I think this is a nerf to heroes like Luna and Sven, heroes that stack the Ancients with an early Helm of the Dominator and then transition into a Satanic later on. Honestly, it was a very powerful strategy that came at no cost. It was completely free, it was easy to do and insanely rewarding. Especially now that they introduced another stack of Ancients on each side of the map, it would have become even more powerful, right, and as such even more broken. So I fully understand where they're coming from. They turned Helm of the Dominator into a supporting item instead. It now uses a headdress and a gloss of haste and a recipe. It still costs 1800 gold. It gives aura attack speed 10, aura health regen 8, and the Dominator creep is a little bit more powerful than before. Also a little bit of stats. I don't think this item will see any play in its current state. It just seems incredibly weak. Maybe the aura health regen is powerful enough for maybe the stats, but +6 in all attributes is just not that much for 1800 gold, if I'm completely honest. So, this was a really harsh nerf. Helm of the Dominator, I think, is mostly dead now. Of course, you can still use it to dominate creeps. Uses, you know, it kind of works the exact same way as it did before. Right, you can only have one of them. It doesn't have a mana cost anymore, so that's nice. But yeah, so Helm of the Dominator is kind of rest in pieces, which is a bit of a shame. It's kind of an iconic item, but alright. With the Mask of Madness, there's a bit of a change to the Morbid Mask. The Morbid Mask now deals a little bit of damage. It doesn't say so on the test client, but it does. Just a tiny little bit of damage. Still uses a recipe, but the recipe cost has been changed since the Morbid Mask is now more expensive. Now, Mask of Madness, instead of just making it so you take more damage, it now silences you and reduces your armor a little bit for 8 seconds. It still gives you essentially the same bonuses as before, but I actually really like this change. This makes it so that some heroes, like for example Troll Warlord, or even New Monkey King to some extent, right? But there's gonna be a bunch of heroes that don't mind being silenced. Juggernaut maybe, right? They'll blow all of their spells and at that point activate the Mask of Madness and just go in. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually gonna be quite powerful in Juggernaut too, because you can cast the ultimate and then activate the Mask of Madness while you're ultimating and then get the benefit there. It seems pretty strong, honestly, from what I've seen people play with this, and it is quite powerful. Yes, you lose a little bit of armor, but the 5 armor reduction isn't really that significant in the early game, and that's really when Mask of Madness shines the most. So, this is a really strong buff, and I expect to see a decent amount of this item now. However, I like that it is no longer an item that you can't just slap on anybody, right? There used to be an era where Mask of Madness was very dominant, it was very good. People bought it on every single hero, no matter what kind of hero it is. And that's a bit silly. But now, a hero like Templar Assassin, for example, just can't go for Mask of Madness because she really needs her spells, right? And I'm not kidding, at the time, Mask of Madness was actually a very powerful item for a Templar Assassin. And then we got the last one, we've got the Satanic. Now, Satanic got a different build-up now. It uses the Morbid Mask, the Mithril Hammer, and the Reaver. It still does essentially the same thing as before, just kind of adjusted its stats a little bit, but it is still a very powerful item, of course. It is now, however, a more difficult to access late game item. It is no longer something you can easily build into, it is something that you'll actually have to dedicate some time to, which that is a pretty hefty nerf. So Satanic got nerfed quite a bit, which I think is understandable, right? It is very good, but it is still a little bit scary to think about, right? There will be less lifesteal going around now. Helm of the Dominator, of course, being removed from that section entirely. Yeah, but alright, you know what? We'll see how that plays out. So that's my quick review regarding all of the reworks in 7.0. Feel free to let me know what you guys want me to discuss next. I actually really enjoy making these videos. These just short, here you go, have a fact and have my opinion. I really love doing that. It is very enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoy it too. But anyway, if you do enjoy it, don't forget to leave a rating on the video. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.